This conference will now be recorded.
Mine too. All right. And we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. And I'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can't do that.
All right, roll call.
Mr. Graham?
Here.
Mr. Kime?
Here.
Mr. Malagranda?
Here.
Mr. McKinnon?
Here.
Ms. Morgan?
Here.
Mrs. O'Rourke?
Here.
All right, I just wanted to mention that Executive Order 2021-06, which is also known as COVID-19 Executive Order number 76, was entered by Governor Pritzker, and it was effective April 2nd, 2021. And as part of that executive order, it reissued Executive Order 2020-07, which dealt with in-person meeting requirements. And it said Section 6 of Executive Order 2020-07 as amended by Executive Order 2020-33 and Executive Order 2020-44 is reissued and extended through May 1st, 2021. So because the governor has extended the emergency declaration, we are now able to meet remotely under the same rules as before through May 1st of 2021. So tonight I am present at the village office along with our deputy clerk, Kelly Simons. And then we do have the balance of the board attending virtually. And just so everybody knows, we do need to have every vote then be a roll call vote. And based upon the roll call, we do have a quorum for tonight's meeting that does meet the requirements under the executive order. We do not have to discuss an absent trustee since that doesn't apply during this time period. And so I'd ask if there's any conflict of interest that it be disclosed at this time. All right, hearing none, if you feel there's a conflict of interest, please speak up and let us know. Do we have any changes in the agenda tonight?
Sally Jo Huggins, just want to let you know that Stephanie King has joined the meeting as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, for letting us know that.
I have a change in the consent agenda. I don't remember if that's at this point or I don't see another spot for it.
Yep, go ahead, and anything that's going to be modified, if you're pulling something from the consent agenda, this would be the time to do it.
Perfect. If you could please pull the March reconciliation from the consent agenda.
So part of F will be taken off the March reconciliation. Any other changes?
Yeah, can you pull the March 8th minutes off for a correction, please?
Okay. All right, any other changes to the agenda? All right, hearing none, if we could have a motion to approve the agenda as modified.
Jeremy Graham will make that motion.
Julie will second.
All right, roll call, please.
Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Kime?
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda?
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Ms. Morgan?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke?
Yes.
All right, we'll go on with the consent agenda. A motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Jeremy Graham will make that motion.
Right,
Second, Julie.
thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Kime?
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda?
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Ms. Morgan? Yes. Mrs. O'Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
All right, and then we did have item A pulled for correction. Julie, is there a correction you want to make, or has it already
Yeah.
been?
Yeah, under Public Works, number 3, we're talking about purchases for the generator, but I believe the accounts that we have listed are inaccurate. The 10141,611, I believe, should be 0141661. There is no 611, and I got my budget out, so. And then
Okay.
the 51 account is 51,44820 in the minutes, but I believe it should be 51,44830.
All right.
I must have written them down wrong when they read them. Sorry.
Not a problem, sorry.
I suppose we could either make a motion to approve the minutes as amended, or we can wait till the next meeting when they're modified and amended and brought back to us.
I'm happy to make a motion to approve the minutes as amended with the 2 account numbers that I just stated.
We have a second?
Jeremy Graham will second.
All right, any discussion on that? All right, hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Malagranda?
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Ms. Morgan? Yes. Mrs. O'Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Kime?
Yes.
All right, and nobody signed up for public comment, so we'll move on to Public Works.
Okay, first item for Public Works is just a reference to the minutes from April the 5th are included in the packet, so hopefully you've had the opportunity to look through that, and that'll give you some background information on some of the items that we will be discussing. Item number 2 is approval of JP Electric, and we do have a recommendation by committee for board approval to pay JP Electric invoice 111-020-0019 in the amount of $5,830.25 from account number 01-42-514.
And since that is coming from committee, we do not need a second. So any discussion regarding this? If there's no discussion, roll call, please.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Ms. Morgan? Yes. Mrs. O'Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Kime?
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda?
Yes.
All right, so that's been approved.
Okay, item number 3 is regarding an agriculture land use and lease agreement. And I would like to make a motion that the board approve of the resolution that's been drafted by Attorney Gaziano, authorizing the village president to sign the Illinois Cash Farm lease agreement with Stephen Miller for farming of tillable land and maintenance of non-tillable land, which is owned by the village for the Highlands development.
And just a correction, Mike, you said Stephen Miller, but I think you meant Stephen Mitchell.
I meant Stephen Mitchell, my apologies.
That's okay. I just wanted to make sure Sally had the correct name in the minutes.
Thank you for catching that.
You're welcome.
It'll be resolution 2021-07R. Did
Thank
that
you.
come from committee?
No, that is not from committee. That is a motion made by me.
Okay.
So we need a second.
Jeremy Graham will second that motion.
All right, so any discussion? I know that, Mary, you had sent this out to everybody, the cash lease, along with the resolution.
That's correct. The only thing that is different from what was emailed to you is I had also sent this to Stephen Mitchell, and he accepted the same. He asked if he should sign it before wait for the board, and I said he could sign it, assuming that if the board were to pass it in its current form. The only thing that he added in was his mailing address that I needed on the first page. And I asked him to list the last 4 digits of his social security number. He's going to contact me with the full number for the file, but I didn't want that full number otherwise listed.
Okay. Any other discussion regarding this?
Well, I'm sure everybody's probably had the opportunity to read it, but just to highlight what we're trying to accomplish here is obviously with the village now owning that land, like any other property owner in the village, we would need to maintain that relative to mowing and keeping it under, stormwater pollution prevention and all those items. And it would be a monumental task and burden on the village. So the agreement basically with Mr. Mitchell was that he would be able to farm the 25 acres that is farmable. And then in partnership with that, he would also then take on the responsibility to keep other areas and so forth mowed. So the agreement itself is probably well below market value for the use of farmland. However, the cost that the village would incur to try to maintain that, it works out to be a pretty equitable situation for both the farmer, Mr. Mitchell, as well as the village.
And also, as I pointed out in the resolution, in the event that the village were to sell the land during the lease period, and basically we could go through with that, and they would lose their crops, they would just be asking for the value of the input, which depending on who you talk to is anywhere from a couple $100 to $500 an acre. But would not be requesting anything for any value of lost crops or labor or anything of that nature. Also, I had given you the information that Chad had put together for me as to, in essence, what it would cost for a third party to maintain this land if we had to do it ourselves or have somebody else do it. So I think all across the board it is equitable. And then just the last thing I would state that if the board were to approve this, as I mentioned in what I gave over to Frank with the original, is that it would need the April date of Frank signing listed on the first line on the first page, and then also in section 1B on the first line.
So Mary, I did have one question. It seems like a reasonable situation, but the vagueness of what we would reimburse if the property were to be sold, you're not uncomfortable with that vagueness? I mean, we're saying $500. What is he thinking and all of that? We're not at all concerned about that.
I'm not, only because I got that language also from him. I had talked to Chad, and Chad had told me the types of things that are considered an input. And so did Mr. Mitchell, and it was Mr. Mitchell that was on the higher end of possibly $500. The key thing I was more concerned about is if they were looking for a cost of labor and or the value of any crops that would be destroyed. And that's not the case. Also, I was a little concerned about limestone spreading because that's one of the more expensive things. And based on the nature of the crops that would be put in here, that I did spell out what types, that it would either corn, soybeans, alfalfa, and something else, that they wouldn't have lime spreading involved with those.
And Julie, I think on another note, the risk is probably fairly low. The probability, that we're able to move this property before the, cultivation season is probably not very high. And I'm sure that if that opportunity was there, we could factor that in and hopefully delay closing of the property until they were, already recovered. So probably a relatively low risk in addition to that.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Any other discussion? All right, if no other discussion, roll call, please.
Ms. Morgan?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Kine?
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda?
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
All right, that's approved.
Okay, the last item regards the 2021 street project, and we do have a motion by committee recommending board approval to award the contract to Rock Road for a Lida Street Road project in an amount not to exceed $328,000 from account number 15-46-850 and the quality control expenses coordinated through Fairgram in an amount not to exceed $5,000 from account number 15-46-502 and authorizing the village president to sign the necessary documents.
All right. Since that's coming from the committee, we do not need a second, so any discussion?
How did that compare to that estimate, you guys? I think it seems like it was like 100,000 below. Is that right?
It's quite a bit below the estimate, and then including in the amount that we just indicated there, that is inclusive of contingency costs, and we actually added about $25,000 of additional work in close proximity to the project area because the bids were very favorable.
Yeah, Chad's good at that. Aren't you, Chad? Hey, the only other question is, there was that quality issue I saw in the minutes. Seth, you came forward and said, no, they've corrected themselves. Has there been people change or what? I mean, you feel okay?
Yeah, I guess so kind of what we talked about in the public works meeting was, I think the quality issue that may have been there with the village was, what did we decide, guys? I think it was like maybe 10
11 years ago.
Yeah, 11
Yeah,
years
10 or
ago.
11.
And just based on the most recent experience that, Fairgram has had with Rock Road, obviously, I mean, every project has challenges, but we haven't seen the type of quality issue that was described that happened several years ago now. But at the same
Talking
time,
about the bump test? Are you talking about the bump test on the Lida Street?
I believe it was just more of an issue related to.
It was on Westfield.
Well, that was on Westfield. I was talking about that was going to be a Lida Street. Because the bump test on the Lida was, I sat in that bump test, and that was not very good. I'll put it to you that way.
Yeah, I guess I don't have any knowledge of what may have been wrong before. However, like the one thing that I did recommend was that we, because of the fact that the next highest bid above Rock Road was approximately $50,000 higher, I recommended that difference in bid, you allocate approximately $5,000 for a materials testing, which is technically supposed to be done anyway to ensure that the HMA mix is put down to the proper density. So that's another, quality assurance check there to help kind of make sure that you end up with the product that you're expecting on your, main road through town.
As I recall too, part of the issue was also timing, in that I think that company bit off a little bit more than they could chew as far as projects at that time. And we were having difficulty getting them to come out. But I think that they realized that the village was serious, because I know there was a point where we were talking about like a $70-some thousand penalty if they didn't finish by a certain time after that had been given extensions. So hopefully they've corrected their ways and understand that the village is serious about following through on what the terms are, that we hopefully won't have any issue.
And the gap in bids that you saw, is it unusual?
I think it's just aggressive. I think from to be honest, all of the bids were aggressive. Every single, all 5 of them that we received were extremely aggressive. From when Chad and I worked together on putting this estimate together, we felt we were pretty tight. We were trying to fit too much into the budget that we were working with there. And so to see that bid pricing was, really kind of a good shock for us all. But I don't see that as being an issue. I think they simply are trying to get a project that is early in the year to get, fill up their schedule essentially. I think there's a lot of contractors that are doing this right now, because there's just not a lot of work out on the streets for bidding yet.
Julie,
So we
it's
don't,
not
there's no financial
unusual.
problems with this company, right? I mean, it's just a big project with a lot of money and, it just makes me a little nervous when there's that big of a gap. So sorry for all the questions.
No, I understand. Those are all great questions.
It's not unusual, Julie. We've had, over the last 12 years, we've had several years where we've had very low bids on our road projects, which have allowed us to do additional work on the roads. And a lot of that comes from getting our bids in early. And then we're some of the first projects they're looking at, so they want to get work going because they've got crews that are sitting there unemployed, basically, and they're trying to get them back out and employed.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, and that's, yeah, like Frank said, that's one of the big things that Chad pushes every year is he wants to be one of the first street projects out, out for bid to make sure that he capitalizes on that bidding phenomenon.
I see Sally Bennett had her hand raised. If she wants to talk, she can also unmute herself. There you go.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that this lower bid allows us to use funds primarily from MFT and not from our general fund, which is always a good thing.
Yep. Thank you for pointing that out. Any other discussion regarding this motion? All right, hearing none, if we could have a roll call, please.
Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Kine,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes. One more time.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan,
Yes.
All right, that's approved.
And that
Anything else?
concludes the activity for Public Works.
All right, thank you. Village engineer, I see you have your report. Anything else that we might need to keep our eyes on?
No, really, it primarily most of the effort this last month was, completing the bid opening and bid review for the Elida Street project, and then getting the recommendation letter put together. And then also the only other thing would just be there's really been no update since we spoke last month about the DCEO Rebuild Illinois grants, as far as when we're going to know. It's still, being communicated that it's going to be sometime in probably the later part of the second quarter. So, still no news there.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to community development.
Okay, Frank, let's look at the code enforcement officer, Casper Manheim. You have that on page 28 of the packet. And we have a few violations, of which a lot of everyone has had some sort of a closure to it. Does anybody have any questions or anything that needs to be added to that? Hearing none, we'll go on to number 2. Affirmative of the 4th of July fireworks. The last letter that was received was from Frank stating that on March the 19th, a contract was signed with Melrose for the purpose of having the fireworks only in the air, not on the ground, for Saturday, July 3rd. Has anything on that been changed since I have been kind of indisposed the last few weeks?
Nothing has changed with the contract. It was signed by me on March 24th, but you're correct. It has a date of March 19th, 2021. And so
Okay.
I went ahead and signed it. And then we just have it up for affirming that I signed that version of the contract.
Okay. Okay. Now, do you have a 4th of July committee other than just for the fireworks? How about, well, let's go the parade in there. Since the city of Rockford.
Let me
What?
interrupt you. We need
Sure.
to address the affirmation of my signing the contract, because I believe when the motion was made that it contained language that was modified in the contract. And so I went
Okay.
ahead and signed the contract. So we need just a motion to affirm the fact that I signed the contract in its current version.
Okay,
So
was this
if you could-
covered by Mary, Frank?
Correct. I think Mary addressed this, and then
That's correct, and Frank is correct. We just need to now affirm that he signed it, that it was okay for him to sign it.
Okay, well then I'll ask, and that's all we need to ask for, correct, Frank?
Just
so
need a
we'll need
motion to affirm,
Motion. We need a motion to affirm that Frank signed the 4th of July fireworks. Need a motion for that, please?
Does anyone
So
want
you're
to make a motion?
Yeah, you're making that motion, Mr. Kimes?
I will make it because nobody else is. Is there a second to my motion?
Jeremy Graham will second that motion.
All right,
Okay,
thank
it's
you.
been moved.
And any additional discussion?
Nope.
If there's no
Then
additional
we'll vote.
discussion, roll call.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Keim,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan? Yes. Mrs. O'Rourke?
Yes.
All right, that's
Does that take care of
approved.
that?
Yep.
That's approved. Anything else on that item? If not, we'll go
Nope,
on to the next one. Let's go to the discussion of the 4th of July parade. Since our governor has allowed the city of Rockford, Illinois, to both have a parade and several other cities in the state of Illinois, I'm assuming that it would be all right for the village of Winnebago to now have a 4th of July or 3rd of July on Saturday, a parade for over the 4th of July weekend. I'd like to have a discussion on that. Anybody have any pros or cons to that?
Well, let me provide you some information that I have. I did reach out to Dr. Martell over the weekend, and she did respond in email. And I let her know that we were going to talk about a parade. And she said we're currently in phase 4 guidance. And I mentioned that we could have seating in the football stadium. And she said currently we would be allowed to have 25% capacity of the football stadium filled. We'd still have to have people wear masks, but it has to be, we have to have tickets. We have to have tickets given to those that'll be in the seats. The festivals and general admission outdoor events are permitted at 15 people per 1,000 square feet. So we could have people along the route, but those people along the route, we would probably have them grouped in families, so they would have to be more than 6 feet apart along the way. If we move into the bridge phase, then the spectator events would increase from 25% capacity to 60% capacity in the stadium. And then we would also allow 30 people per 1,000 square feet instead of 15. She said that we could get to that bridge phase prior to July 3rd. So she said monitor that to see if we're able to increase the attendance in that event. She also did state that reverse parades have gone well. I don't know, it would work better for like homecoming where you've got your floats and people can walk around and have the float stationary. It probably wouldn't work so well for us to have all the vehicles stationary and people walking around the vehicles. But she did mention that that is a possibility. The concern that she had also was that not necessarily at the event, but then if there would be groupings of people after the event where you would have mass group of people together rather than being somewhat separated at the event. So I wanted to let you know that. And then she also did say that she would make herself available to talk to us at any time. So if we needed her to, have a meeting at 4 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon sometime or Tuesday afternoon, whatever, she'd be glad to do that if we wanted to follow up as a board and talk to her more in depth about it. So she definitely is available for that type of a discussion. But I thought I would put that out there just so you have an idea of what she would allow us to do. I don't know
what are we expected by 25% for the number of people that we usually normally have in the parade? I would say 25%. You would have a very, very low number because our parades usually go on for at least about an hour. So what does the rest of the people want to take? Do we have to, and do we need to go through the tickets, the passing of the tickets out, or do everything else that is accompanies that? And then also being able to monitor that. It's going to take us a tremendous amount of people just to be able to pull this off. What's the rest of the people think?
So, and I just wanted to follow up, and then I'll open it up. But the numbers about the stadium is more for the fireworks, because people sitting in the stadium won't be able to see the parade as well. But since we're having the fireworks, if the idea was to have people in the stands for the fireworks, we would have to have it ticketed. And I know we talked about it the last meeting about the police and just having volunteers. We may not be able to have enough volunteers and police, whether it's for fireworks or for a parade. So yeah, whatever your thoughts are about a parade.
Yeah.
I personally feel that the amount of time it would take to try to plan a parade with the high probability it doesn't go off, I personally don't think it's worth the effort at this point in time.
I'm beginning to believe you.
I would agree with Mike. We do have the fireworks this year, which is exciting. We wait one more year when things are back to normal, as close to normal as we can remember. Then we can go from there.
I think even trying to get the fireworks coordinated, and it's going to take a lot of volunteerism to assist the police officers. Even if some of so many people per square foot gets, allows us to get there, how are we going to define it? It's probably going to take a lot of, control tape or whatever to, some fence stakes and everything to try to, segment and quadrant off, the areas that we got. And I would think that whatever volunteerism we're able to pick up will definitely be needed in that regard without trying to spread ourselves too thin for the parade this year.
I totally agree with you. Some other input, Lori, what do you think?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, I with Mike, I don't think it's worth the time to put in when we don't even know where we're going to be at that time.
No. Okay. Do we need to have a vote, or is it just going to die for lack of a second?
I guess the only other thing that I would suggest, and again, if Stephanie and her team, wanted to have a little bit of dialogue and come back to us with, a community opinion or whatever, right now we're pretty limited on, the knowledge that we have. I just hate to see, asking all our volunteers to put forward that much of an effort and pull the plug on them.
Yeah, that's what we're going to have to do. Okay. Well, I will
Mr. Kimes, you said that died for lack of second. I'm sorry, I didn't catch a motion.
There isn't a pending motion right now, and I know Stephanie is on. And if Stephanie, if you'd like to say anything or comment, please do so.
No, I wanted to add in. I think with all of the regulations.
I lost Stephanie.
and no way to really enforce those. We have to kind of take the fireworks and I think people are going to be excited to have those. It's going to be nice to have those as a community, and we can work towards expanding and growing next year. I can't see putting in the time and effort.
No, that sounds good. I think.
Yeah. Do you want us to contact and have doctor come out and have her give us a good idea as to what we do for the fireworks seating and what we should, would, could, or we expect that we can do, so that we have some direct and pertinent information as to what our seating should be in the stands. I don't really know where to turn to, because there is no real, shall we say, guidebook to this. All right. Does anyone else have any input as far as anything as far as the parade is concerned? Julie, come on.
I have no differing opinion than what was said. I think we do the fireworks this year and be grateful we can get that done, and then hopefully get way back to complete normal next year.
And I was just going to say that every Friday afternoon at 2:30, Dr. Martell is available for elected officials in Winnebago County. So we log in and talk to her. The last 2 times it's just been me and Benita Herbie from Rockford. So we've been able to bend her ear about local things. So if there's any particular information that anybody wants from Dr. Martell, let me know, and I can ask the questions or email her. She's very good about responding.
Would you please, because I would like some sort of a schedule or some sort of outline exactly what is expected to us as a village, so that we can give out some sort of direction. Because right now, I like you, Frank, I have no idea what we need to do, because of the fact that we're in the pandemic. So would you ask that, Stephanie? Do you have any questions as far as your amount of your committee is concerned, as far as the giving a hand or helping with that fireworks or anything?
Absolutely. I would love to, if I think of some questions, get them. I can email them to you, Frank. But in terms of manning whatever is needed for the fireworks, I've got, I'm not sure what we have remaining of the committee members. I know that we do have a handful. So, once the village makes an official statement with regard to the fireworks, we will hit the fundraising hard. But the committee and its members will be ready to help.
Okay, that would be fine. Frank, as everybody probably knows, I'm going to be indisposed for about a week or so, because my wife has more surgery to look forward to this coming Thursday. So that's biggie on the Kimes household mind. So if you could take some of those questions and feed them this Friday, I would certainly appreciate it, and keep all those that need to be informed as to what the outcome of your little meeting there.
All right,
okay.
I've got one more thing. Stephanie said something about she'll hit the ground running once the village announces. Have we not announced, or what's the plan to then announce to the community these fireworks are happening?
Well, I was going to wait until after this meeting to see just exactly where we're going to go, but since the fireworks is going to be a go, I think we ought to, at least in the next week or so, after we get some direction, so that we put out, we're going to have the fireworks, and you're going to have to do thus and so, in other words, to have this, come to fruition. Okay.
Right. So I think, Julie, we have approved the fireworks, and so Stephanie, we are planning to have the fireworks July 3rd. At our last board meeting, I think we were all in consensus that we're going to do it July 3rd, almost no matter what. Just because it's going to be an all air show, no ground show, so people can view it from their own homes and see everything. So we really don't have to worry about people gathering. But we do need to make plans. We do need to contact the school to find out, number one, if we are able to use the stands at all, because who knows if they've got a project going on with the track or with the stands over the summer. And if we can use it, then we do need to develop a plan with our police department and any volunteers as to how do we give out tickets, you know, where are we going to seat people, how many people can be seated in there, you know, that type of thing. We'll have to come up with a plan. So those types of things we'll work on, but for now, we can tell everybody that yes, we are having the fireworks on July 3rd. The only way that I see we won't is, number one, the weather doesn't cooperate. We either have, you know, a hurricane or a huge storm coming in, or it's so dry the fire department will not let us, because we had one season where I think it was almost close to that.
Right.
Other than that, you know, I believe that we're going to have our fireworks show. So I would say to the public that yes, we're having our fireworks show that night.
Good. That's good.
Okay.
I think it would also be helpful to get information from Dr. Martell as to maybe other municipalities, how they're handling the handing out of the tickets, because we certainly don't want it to look like there's any favoritism or anything like that. So hopefully that somebody has developed some sort of plan.
Sure. And we have our weekly elected official mayor meeting, and we meet also with Mobile County Chairman Joe Shirelli every Wednesday at 1:30. I won't be able to do it this Wednesday, but that's something that can bring up at those meetings to find out what everybody else is doing.
Frank, do you know of any other community or village or city other than Rockford that is having fireworks this year?
No, I know that Mayor Jury was concerned because they have their fireworks or event for Memorial Weekend, and he was concerned because theirs was coming up first. But we had our meeting canceled last Wednesday, so we weren't able to further discuss any parades at this point.
Okay, so it's only Rockford and Winnebago. Okay.
Right, as far as I know for right now. I don't know about Pecatonica, you know, having their parade for.
I don't think so. I don't think Pecatonica. I talked to one of their trustees the other night, and I don't think they have any plans.
Okay. All right, anything else for?
Can I pipe up here? I don't see how we're going to be able to enforce any of this stuff as far as limiting people in places, because obviously you can't arrest somebody for not abiding by that. If you want to limit the people that are in the stands, that's one thing. But if other people come in and sit, you can't force them to leave, number one. And the only people that can enforce the health code is the health department.
Right.
So right.
What we would do, Jeff, is we would work with the police department and whatever other department we need to, and come up with a policy. So we'd want to say, if you're going to come, go to the stadium first, whether we hand out tickets in advance or hand out tickets there at the gate, you know, people go there, and then come up with a policy. And yes, you may not be able to enforce it, but at least if you have a policy in place, you can tell people this is how we would like to do it. And if they follow it, we don't have to worry about it. So if we say, yes, you can go onto the grounds, but you have to be 6 feet away from another family, we are hoping that they will do the right thing and sit down like they always do. I mean, everyone sits down on a blanket, and they usually sit 6 feet apart anyway. So I don't see a problem with that. So I don't have a problem telling them these are the rules. If they don't abide by the rules, you're right. We're not going to bring the paddy wagon and the goon squad and say, okay, we're going to load you up in the paddy wagon and we're going to take you off to jail. So, you know, it's just the idea that if you give people direction, they typically will follow that direction. So we just need to come up with a plan. And once we have the plan in place, it's up to the people to follow it. So I think we can come up with a plan.
Right.
It's just we won't be able to.
I think that if you put it out there, say we are going to have the 4th of July, but here are the rules we have to abide by in order to attend. You know, obviously, hopefully everybody else understands what it is and why it is. I mean, the village isn't going to be held responsible if you go and sit next to a family and somehow COVID gets transpired between two people. It's going to be kind of go at your own risk if you choose to go and how you seat yourself. But if you like, and I agree with what you say. I'm just, if somebody comes to the point, it comes to the point where, well, there's only supposed to be so many people in this area, but there's 10 more people than there's supposed to be. Well, there's not really a whole lot we're going to be able to do with it.
Right, no,
Hopefully we can figure if we communicate effectively, and those that don't want to abide by them, hopefully they just don't show up.
Exactly.
Thank you.
correct.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I guess we took care of that. I guess that's it for community develop. I will try to have a meeting within the next couple of weeks, and hopefully we'd have it on a Wednesday night, and we would have Dr. Martell is her name, from the health department. I've met her. She's not too big a woman. She's very nice, very kind, very nice. See if we could have her out there for some sort of a meeting. She could give us all directions and give it to it all at once, so we all have the same, we're all on the same page. So I guess that's it from community develop. Thanks, Frank.
All right, thank you. We'll go on to finance committee. The only thing,
Go ahead, Frank.
I said the only thing that is the First National letter of credit, and I kind of put that on your part of the agenda just because it's a financial item. I don't know if you had a chance to talk about it at finance or not.
We did. It's one of the standard letters that we get every year, the irrevocable letter of credit. We have it. It was in the agenda, it's in the packet as well. But that's all we had discussed.
And I just wanted, every year we just make sure we have it in there so everybody knows that we do have it. And it's on record in the minutes that we did receive it. And just keep track of that every year. So it looks like nothing else from Finance Committee. So we'll go on. All right, we'll go on to Police Committee. Stan?
Okay, number one is a police vehicle leasing. It was brought up by Chad at the Public Works meeting, and I gave the information to Sergeant Half to talk with him to find out if there's a possibility where we can get some police vehicles through that. And Sergeant Half has discussed it with Chad, and also I believe it's Bacher of Freeport. And just to give the information for the future to the board, that the police are looking to see if they can possibly get some leasing with that. Sergeant Half, you want to fill in? And
I do know we looked into the past, and there was other companies we tried to get through leasing of vehicles, and there was a minimum of like 7 vehicles. It sounds like there's no restriction with this dealership. You could do 1, you could do 10. I think through Sergeant Half, he's waiting for a quote from them because they have to put the cost of the vehicle and then the cost of the equipment. They roll it all into one, and they set out a lease amount per year. My understanding is after 3 years,
3 or 5, depending on the terms of the lease.
Depending on the terms of the lease, 3 to 5 years, you could own the vehicle and you could do whatever you want with it after that. The lease would include any normal maintenance. It wouldn't include tires or brakes or things like that, but your oil changes and your normal maintenance items would be taken care of. So we're just waiting for some information back from the dealership. I mean, the numbers that I've heard thrown around right now are $5,000 or $6,000 a year. So, and that would include all the equipment that goes in the vehicle, as far as cameras and radar units and all that as well. So it looks like a viable option for the future instead of having to wait 3 years to purchase a new vehicle. With the $16,000 we put out in the sinking fund, you could lease 3 vehicles for that amount of time, because that $15,000 would be there every year to cover the cost of the leases. But it's in this beginning stages right now. We're still looking at it. Thought it'd be a viable option, so just kind of want to put that out there to so everybody could hear it. And I don't know how Chad's is going with his options, but it might work for us if we can get a decent price.
All right, move on to number 2, which is the Northern Illinois Police Memorial Week donation.
So we requested that we do this every year. The Northern Illinois Multi-Jurisdictional Honor Guard requests a donation every year for Police Week. Years past, excluding last year, we have been giving $150 to that entity, the Police Memorial Week Fund. And we recommend that continue with the $150 donation to them.
Is that something that was approved at committee, or is that it's something that a motion needs to be made?
Yes, it was approved in committee. I'm sorry.
So we have a motion to donate $150 for 2021 to the Northern Illinois Police Memorial Fund. Do we have any discussion? If there's no discussion, roll call, please.
Mr. Kimes,
Yes.
Mr. Malgranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham.
Yes.
Just
Do
so
we
everybody
have a
knows,
line item for that donation?
yep, I was just going to give you that. 01-43-658.
5/8?
Yes, 658.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to number 3, which is a conditional offer of employment.
So we have given a verbal offer of employment to a candidate that had applied. He said he is acceptable to the terms of what that entails as far as starting wage, insurance. He would be on a 1-year probation, and there's things that he would have to meet in that 1-year probation as far as a 2-week course down at Southern Illinois Police Training Institute, which runs about $1,500 for us. He is part-time certified. He's very excited about coming here. So all we have to do, and Sally Huggins has a copy of the actual offer as what it entails. I can provide that to anyone. Basically says that he has to show proof that he can do the job, number 1. Number 2, he has to get all the training he needs. There's requirements by the Illinois Training and Standards Board that he has to take so many hours of classes and trainings to get his training jacket or training file up to speed. And that's all computer based. But then the 2 weeks will let you spent down in Belleville, Illinois, where the training institute's at. And that'll basically give him the transition from a certified part-time officer to a full-time certified officer. So once we have his signature on that document, we're looking forward towards like an April 30th hire date. Just to avoid the snafu with the insurance we had last time. To try not to go backwards on that. So just an informational thing for now. Hopefully by the 1st of May, we'll have somebody else in here, a new officer.
So do we have a motion coming from committee, or is there going to be a motion made tonight to offer employment to this individual?
That comes from committee.
Okay.
All right. So we'll need the terms of the motion. We'll need to have the candidate's name, and we'll need to have the benefits, the wage starting salary or hourly rate.
Okay. 1 second.
And as a reminder, if we need to go into executive session to talk about this, we can. I don't know if there's anything we need to go into executive session, but if we did, we could go into executive session.
So the offer included, was to Matthew Lane. The starting salary would be $21 an hour for the first 12 months. He would get an additional 50-cent raise after that 12 months. He would be entitled to insurance effective the first day of the month following 30 days of continuous employment. He would have to have successfully complete the terms and conditions, which means a psychological background examination, a physical examination. I think that's all that's required to start. Conditional offer.
And in that April 30th would 2021 would be a start date?
Yes, that's the date we were looking at. And speaking to Sally Jo Huggins, that to avoid the issue that we had before, he would technically would not be covered by his medical insurance until June 1st. So we wanted to avoid any issue with not getting his insurance started as soon as possible after he starts.
So that's the motion coming from committee. Any discussion?
Is this a I see you mentioned he's going from a part-time to you're looking for full-time. How many years of experience does this officer have?
Well, he has 16 years of experience with a coroner's office.
As a lead investigator.
He's their lead investigator at the coroner's office right now. He's a certified homicide investigator. But as far as the police side of it, he worked a short period of time with the Park District, and then he worked part-time here for a short period of time. He's going to be one of those candidates that we'll be able to teach him the way we want things done. He's very moldable, very accommodating to what we have. I think he'll be an easy fit. It's just going to take some time to get him up to speed and get him to the level we want him to be at. He's very excited. So we're hoping that he works out very well if we can get him started.
What was his reason for leaving the village previously?
He was having marital issues at the time.
Any other discussion?
The only thing I would say is I don't think this technically comes from committee. I think it's got to have its own separate motion because we didn't get into these details, I don't think, in committee, Jeff, right? I mean, we talked more generically. So I think we just can make the motion. I think instead we make a motion. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right, Julie. That'd be the safe way to go. So if you want to make that motion or
Because
somebody
we
wants to
wouldn't
make
have these details in our police committee minutes.
So Julie, are you going to make that motion then?
Yeah, I can make the motion to, I guess we have a verbal to go with a written offer to Matthew Lane to start 4/30 at $21 an hour for the first 12 months with a 50-cent raise after probation.
After successful probation, okay.
Successful, yeah.
Successful completion of the conditional offer, the psychological examination, the physical examination.
Yep. Do we have a second to that?
Stan Milligrand, seconds.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? All right, hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan, Ms. Morgan,
Sorry. Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Kime.
Yes.
All right, that's approved.
Okay, to be on the safe side, we'll go number 4 is firearm purchase, trade, and buyback. Stan Mellegrand makes a motion for this, and I'm going to turn it to Chief White because it is quite, he's going to have to explain what might happen here.
So the service life of the firearms that we currently have is, depending on who you talk to, 8 to 10 years. The firearms we have were purchased in 2013 at the time. They're still firearms that are operational, but due to service time and the recommendations of the manufacturer, or not so much for reliability, but just to make sure weapons are in conditions where they should be in service. We spoke to a couple of vendors to find out what it would cost to replace the firearms that we have. One quote was a little higher than the other. One of the other reasons is the firearms that we have are 40 caliber firearms. The industry right now is falling away from the 40 caliber firearm as well. From all the firearms distributors that I speak, not firearm distributors, but ammunition distributors that I speak to, the production of that caliber of ammunition is going to decrease exponentially because the 9mm firearm has become so popular. They're going to increase manufacture of 9mm ammunition and decrease the 40 caliber ammunition. Since the last time the FBI did their testing, the FBI made recommendations to move back to a 9mm, where years ago they originally went from the 9mm to a 40 caliber. With the development of the 9mm ammunition, it's become more effective, and the cost to use those firearms are going to be less. The cost of 40 caliber ammunition is going to increase due to production and demand, and the 9mm cost is going to go down. Like I said, the last time we had gotten firearms for the agency is in 2013. So we're running right around service life of firearms according to several sources. The total cost to replace the firearms is $2,967.50. We would get approximately $230 per firearm to either have officers from here buy those weapons from us, or Keesler Police Supply, the company we were quoted with, would buy those weapons back from us. I looked into the possibility and probability of what would it take and what are the ramifications of allowing officers to buy those weapons back. There's no liability that the agency or the village would entail or have with the allowing officers from the agency to buy those weapons back. The background checks, as far as the FOID cards, still have to be done, and those records would have to be submitted to Keesler to ensure that the people here that are buying those weapons are certified and do have the proper documentation for the state to be transferred.
Jeff, this $2,967.50 is per firearm?
No, $2,967.50 is for 10 firearms. And that's subtracting $230 per firearm that we have now, which we have 10. So that's we would pay the $2,967. That's already taking out the $2,300 in trade or buyback.
We would
So
also
the
want a bill of
the
sale
actual
of personal property for
52.
each of those as well.
So is the actual cost going to be 5,200?
No, the last number I gave you was the actual cost. It's already subtracting the $2,300 for trade-in or buyback. So the cost of the village would be $2,967.50.
No, but this is what I'm asking.
The total price.
You're talking about, you've already added in $2,300 for the buyback of the guns.
Sure.
So is the initial cost $5,200, and then they're going to give us $2,300 for the total firearms? So then our net cost is $2,900, or is our net cost going to be $600 and some dollars?
Let me do it here real quick.
Because if we're looking at having our own officers buy the guns, then the cost to them is going to be different if they're already giving us a credit.
5267.50 is the total cost for the firearms. We subtracted 2,300 from that, and that would be our cost, regardless of if we sold them back to the officers or if Keesler buys them. Because what would happen is the officers have to send a check, a certified check to Keesler to cover the buyback cost.
Okay. So Keesler will be the one that will receive those monies. So then our contract with Keesler, no matter what, will be $2,900 and some odd dollars.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
No, I guess obviously I didn't explain it clear enough. I was giving the bottom line number and not starting with where I should have with the top number, what the total cost of the firearms would be, subtracting the 2,300. So I understand, I get it. So it's as long as everybody.
This is just one of, not pointing anything out and blame or whatever, but this is one of those situations where I brought up last meeting. If there was a resolution coming from committee that was already prepared for the meeting tonight, it would be there in writing. So it'd be a little bit easier to follow through, and we wouldn't have to have as much discussion. So just pointing out something that we can work on in the future is at the committee level, if we do have the ability to do a resolution, we can bring that then to the board, and then the board takes less time going through this. So this is just a case in point that I thought would be a good time to point that out. So anyway, we'll need a motion then for
We have
that.
a motion from Mr. Malagranda.
Right, so it's including all of that. So then we'll need a second.
I'll second, but I'd like clarification on what account number this is coming out of, Jeff.
0143830. That was money I had put in the budget originally for this purpose. Should be small equipment.
Yeah, and I'll second. And Frank, when the committee, I mean, we couldn't remember what Stan's limit was on this. So technically, couldn't this come as an affirmation to the board? It's within Stan's limit to approve.
Right. Yep.
Well, that was my understanding. We had passed this at committee level, so I thought it was already there. So that would have eliminated this discussion. I mean, we had already approved up to $3,200 for this to occur. So maybe that was my misunderstanding or something.
That was done in committee, but I just want to make sure because the previous one was also done in committee too.
Yeah.
Well, but this one we actually voted on in committee. The higher we didn't make an official vote on. That's the difference, Dan. So, and if it being within your limit, it probably could be just an affirmation and not even a motion, in my opinion. If I'm understanding the method.
I think that was part of the question, was the limit of that Stan could authorize.
Right, and that's where it is important to know whether the total was $5,200 or if it was less than, if it was the $2,900, because then Stan would have been able to do that. And then you're right, you would have just reported to us that that's already been done. So.
And I think that the amount that we said it would not to exceed $3,200 because there might be a little bit of shipping charges to ship weapons back and forth.
All right. So
but
if
I
that
certainly
was approved,
think, go ahead. I'm sorry, Frank. I do want to make a comment after you're done.
As I say, if that was approved at the police committee to do it, it's up to you whether you want to have the board, but it may be, since we're already there, it may be fine just to have that motion come from the committee and have the rest of the board approve it.
Okay. Well, we have a motion and a second then.
All right, so any discussion? Mary, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I think that it's important that this did come though before the board because although it meets the monetary requirement of the committee, I think it's very important that we at some level have the bill of sale of this personal property because we have to make sure that it's very clear on paper that this firearm is transferring from the village to someone individually, and there are no express or implied warranties whatsoever as to fitness for a particular purpose. So I'm a little unclear if, is it this company that's selling it then to the individual, or is the village selling it? But regardless of who's selling it, somewhere in there, for the village's liability purposes, we need a bill of sale.
So what occurs is I have to do a check on their FOID card along with their birthday to make sure, number one, the transfer can occur from us to them. Keesler gets the same information as far as the confirmation through the Illinois State Police that this FOID card this person is using is valid and up to date, and they base it on the FOID number and the birthday. There is a confirmation number that's given back to me, basically saying that transfer could occur because everything is correct and the transfer can occur. Keesler will also have that information as far as the documentation of the confirmation number through the state, the make, model, and serial number of the firearm. So basically, they'll have a record of the transfer, and I will have a record of the transfer. If you want a bill of sale, I can make bills of sale. That's fine.
Jeff, do you know, will the payment be made by the officer or the individual to the village, or will it be made payable to?
It's going to be made payable to Keesler.
Right. So then they will then give a bill of sale to the individual. We will not be handling the money at all.
Right. It's because they want certified checks made out to Keesler and the amount of the agreed of the trade of the buyback.
Perfect. So that means the village will not be involved.
So then the village isn't selling them. Keesler is.
I still have to have the transfer from us to them. See what I'm saying? I still have to make sure that
we still have to give them
the actual sale is between Keesler and the individual.
Right. So they'll give us $230 per gun. We will give them the guns. They're giving us $230 as a credit. They'll then turn around and allow our officers basically the first right of refusal to purchase the weapons.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the transfer that the village is making is to the company, not to the individual officer purchasing the gun, correct?
Correct.
Yep. The firearms aren't technically yes, but they're not. Okay. There's no requirement for us to ship them to Keesler first. We just have to send all the documentation laying out the make, model, serial number of each weapon that occurs to, plus the verification of the FOID and the completion of the documentation through the state.
So physically, we're handing them over, but we're not part of the transaction, I think, is to sum it up.
Correct.
Exactly.
Okay. So we have a motion to go this route with the buyback of the guns, getting credit for the guns, and then purchasing new ones. Any additional discussion? All right, if there's no additional discussion, roll call, please.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Ms. Morgan?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Kime?
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda?
Yes.
All right, that's approved.
All right, number 5 is qualified immunity indemnification and HB 1727.
So I don't know if anybody's seen this yet. The passage of the last bill that included all the legislation as far as requirements for new law enforcement, training aspects. The original legislation had originally a qualified immunity portion or parameters in it, that they were going to establish a task force to review qualified immunity and then look at it over a period of 3 months, I believe it was. And I think June 1st or July 1st was the deadline. I couldn't find my paperwork on it. They would come back with a recommendation. Well, they have forwarded legislation, which is House Bill 1727, that creates the Bad Apple and Law Enforcement Accountability Act of 2021. It's basically eliminating qualified immunity for police officers. So the question came up is how, if this were to pass in one way, shape, or form, how are the village police officers going to be indemnified for the work that they do? I asked Kelly Simons to reach out to Brad Cole from IML. They are one of the entities that are strongly against this passage of this bill. But basically all he forwarded back to us was a synopsis of the bill. They gave no position on it, and they gave no recommendations as to what would occur if this were to pass. So I just kind of want to put that in everybody's ear to know that if this passes in some shape or some form, is the village going to cover us for legal acts that weren't found to be illegal or violating anybody's rights? The conditions of lately with cases that are going around, obviously the Minneapolis case, and now I hear there was another case in Minnesota yesterday or earlier today. Similar things are happening up in Minnesota at this point. Other shootings that have occurred. I guess it's just something to put out there and say, what options do we as employees and you guys as our employer have for covering us in these situations? Is it something that we would have to, IML would have a policy or a plan that the village could buy to cover us? Is it something we have to buy privately and cover the cost ourselves? It's kind of a up in the air game right now, so we were just trying to see what was out there. I know there are some people that do have umbrella policies that are of their own, they carry of their own. But I guess it's some people look at it as, you know, you're our employer, are you going to cover that extra cost? So it's just kind of getting it out in front of everybody, and if this does come into it, go ahead.
I just had a thought that maybe in your organizations, you know, you talk to different police, you know, officers and different jurisdictions, but I don't know if there might be other states out there that have already taken this type of an action, like maybe California or other places where they may have done away with.
There's one state and one city that have gotten away with the qualified immunity for police officers. The state is New Mexico and the city is New York.
So what I would do, Jeff, is maybe if you could reach out or maybe see if we can look to see what police officers in the state of New Mexico and the city of New York are doing, maybe what the municipalities are doing for covering the police officers there. You know, if there's some type of insurance that they're getting either as a municipality or as a governmental entity or as an individual. But that's probably the first place I would look at.
Okay.
Yeah, and Frank, I just asked Jeff to put it on the agenda because obviously this is a very fluid situation, and we're, you know, it's really a lousy place for police officers to have to deal with this sort of thing. So I said, we just need to keep the board abreast of these changes, and we need to be thinking as trustees on, you know, is this something that the village would cover, a personal indemnity policy or something against, you know, for our officers. And yeah, it's evolving. And Jeff, I think you said that there are some municipalities that are picking up insurance for their officers, and just we have to be thinking about that and figure out where we go from here. So again, it was just one of those big topics that we just want to bring to the attention of everybody.
Yeah, there was one county south of us that before their board had decided if they were to eliminate qualified immunity in this state, the county would cover the cost to cover the officers that work for that county. That would be the sheriff's office in that county. They wouldn't cover the municipalities, but they would cover the sheriff's office, whatever cost it was to cover them for legal representation, anything that were to happen. So.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, that's it for our police committee. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Stan. We'll go on to my items. You've got my report. Next item we have is the discussion and approval of short-term disability plan. Originally, we had received the quote from the Standard, and they were the ones that have our current policy, and their rates went up quite a bit. And so Coyle Kelly had gone out to see if there was anyone else, and several places even refused to bid, saying that we had too many police officers, I guess, for the number of employees that we have. But MetLife did give a quote, and they came back quite a bit less than the Standard, as you've seen in the packet. And then just last week, Michelle Kimes did receive confirmation from a person at the Standard saying that they would drop their rates to what MetLife would charge us. So because the Standard offers more than what MetLife would, basically the Standard is the Cadillac of the industry. It's kind of a no-brainer that we would continue with what we have, especially since nobody can beat the price now. But we still need to have board approval. And so what I would like is a motion to approve, to have Standard continue with our short-term disability plan at the rates quoted by MetLife. We will get the official contract and terms from the Standard, I believe, next week or the week after. But if anything changes, like with the fireworks, then what I would do is contact everybody and let you know that there's been a change. But what I would ask is that you approve the renewal of the Standard at the rate that MetLife has quoted. And that is showing the amount of $3,781.80 annually.
That's based on the employees at that time.
Correct. Yeah.
Who do we offer this to? All full-time employees?
Yes. All regular full-time employees.
Are you looking for a motion then, Frank?
Yes, please.
I'll make the motion to go with the short-term disability plan from Standard at the rates that are quoted for MetLife.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Jeremy Graham will second.
Do we have any discussion regarding this?
Have we had large increases from these folks in the past, and has anybody explained why the significant jump at this particular point?
I think this was the first time we had them, was that this last policy. Prior to that, it was with Humana, I believe.
You're right. We did have Humana, but then the Standard was better than Humana, so we went up with the Standard, exactly, even though we had Humana still as our provider.
Right.
It was a company called Fort Dearborn for several years, which was an offshoot of Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Okay, yep. Thank you, Sally.
obviously, I don't have a problem with the company giving you a last look, but I guess if we find the same pattern in future years where their rates are significantly higher, but yet they agree to drop it down to a competitor rate, I'll have probably a bone of contention with it.
You know, I completely agree, Mike. I hate seeing these increases, but if you think, I mean, how many did even decline to quote us? I mean, it looked like there were 4 or 5 that wouldn't even look at us, right?
Right.
That's the problem. I hate feeling stuck.
Yeah, like I
And
said,
again, if we could
we all
get,
know health insurance is going ballistic on everybody, but I guess just trying to figure out obviously, there's a greater probability that somebody will be in a period of time that they need disability insurance even over life insurance. So, but that's been that way forever. So just trying to understand why the significant jump at this particular point.
and that's one of the things we'll look into with admin team is trying to see if we can pool with other organizations, and hopefully we can, if that can occur, then maybe we can lower our rates. So we have a
bigger risk pool that you can get part of, the better opportunities you have to mitigate some of it.
Right. Any additional discussion on this motion? All right, hearing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Morgan,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Keim,
Because Michelle Kimes is my daughter-in-law, it's a conflict of interest. So
So you're
are you
abstaining?
abstaining?
I'm abstaining.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
All right, that's approved. And then the next item is discussion and approval of life and the AD&D, the plan from the standard. Again, they have agreed to bring their quote back down to what MetLife is quoted. I'm looking for a motion to go with the standard renewal. It's showing a 1-year renewal. And that would be at the annual rate based upon our employees at the time of $1,434.24.
What was that, Frank?
The annual amount, combined estimated annual amount would be $1,434.24, which is the MetLife quote. And that would be for the standard renewal, and it looks like it's a 1-year renewal.
And that's a 50% increase?
That, it was currently $950.40, and it's increasing to $1,434.24. So yes, it's a 50.91% increase. Standard's original renewal rate was going to be 77.27% increase. The amount is going to be $40 per month increase over our current rate.
Well, in this case, is there a reason we shouldn't consider going with MetLife for the 2-year? If you're saying they'll meet MetLife standard, will it meet MetLife's price, but only for 1 year?
That I don't know because I don't have the terms in front of me. I just know that what Michelle said was that they would meet the same terms as MetLife, so it could be a 2-year, but we don't have that information in front of us. We just have the email from the gentleman that said that they would meet the same terms as MetLife. So I apologize, I don't know.
Can you go with 2 different companies for this?
I don't know. I mean, we've always had the same company for both, and I don't know if we can split it. I just know that we had 2 separate quotes. So that's why I have two separate items on the agenda.
I don't know why they'd have to be the same provider, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't.
Allie, has it always been the same provider?
Yes.
Okay.
Not sure that it
That's what I
has to
thought.
be either, but in my time, 13 years, it always has been.
That's what I thought.
Well, it's a small piece of business, so you might as well stay with the same provider. I just don't like seeing those increases, no matter how small the dollar amount is.
Right.
Can we push it off till next month until we see if they're willing to match the 2 years?
Well, we have a time constraint. I was just checking my notes here, the emails. May 1st, okay. So we have to have everything signed before May 1st.
Well, we can at least bounce it off them if they said they were going to match the terms and the terms happen to be a 2-year rate guarantee, then maybe they will accommodate that. I wouldn't say to hold it up on that basis, but at least we try.
Right.
I guess another factor, just as a point of information, one of the things that's probably driving some of this is it's kind of a zero-sum game when some people are benefited from low interest rates. Well, insurance companies are dependent on interest rates to get their earnings to cover some of these claims, and our low interest rate environment may be one of the reasons why you're seeing these rates go up.
Mm-hmm.
I will make a motion to go with the standard renewal on the MetLife price for our life and AD&D plan analysis, or AD&D plan, for the 2 years.
All right. Do we have a second?
Do we want to make it conditional on the 2 years only? I mean, do we trap ourselves if they're not going to match 2 years?
Right. We can do it one of two ways. And if it is on 2 years and they come back with a 1 year, then I'd have to get authority from each of you, basically contacting you and getting your approval to sign a 1 year. Where the motion can state, a 2 year, but if the company will only offer a 1 year, then authorize me to sign the 1 year, extension. Do it that way.
I would like to amend my motion to state exactly what you said.
I'll second that.
It's a team effort.
That's right.
So we have a motion, we have a second from Mrs. O'Rourke, and any further discussion? All right, hearing no additional discussion, roll call, please.
Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Kynes,
Abstention.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan.
All right, that's approved. We can go on to the next item, which is discussion of property located at 105 South Elida Street. You may have noticed that I think there's a for sale sign out there on the property, which is between the police garage and then there's a residence on the other side of it. This property has been, when I first came to the village board, I met with the current owner back then, and he wanted to sell the property. I believe it was for $40,000 to the village, and the village was not interested in purchasing it for that price. He then was interested in selling it maybe 5-6 years ago or so, and we had an appraisal. The appraisal came back, I believe, at about $8,000 for that parcel, and he had it listed with Kathy Heron Ellis. And when I mentioned to her that that's what we would be willing to start with, she wouldn't even go back and tell them. So now it's back for sale. And I just wanted to bring it to your attention in case you feel that it may be worthwhile for the village to look at purchasing that property. I did not see what it was listed for. If anybody knows, if they want to, mention that, that's fine. But I think this is something
I
where,
believe it was 25,000.
okay. And I think that's kind of where it was at before, was 22 or 25 when Kathy Heron Ellis had the property when she listed it. So.
That appraisal you had 5 or 6 years ago, is that still applicable? Is it reasonable?
I don't see that there'd be a lot of change to it because I think the use of the property is very limited because of the size of the property. It's very limited as who can buy it and what it can be used for. So anyway, if there is community development or anybody that is interested in looking further at that, then that would be my suggestion, but I just want to put it out there.
I think, Frank, this is Don. I think we could go back and visit that if he wants to sell it. The property is not large enough to put a house or anything else, any type of a structure on the house. It seems as though we're not going to take his loss, but I would like to see that the village have it for the expansion, at least of the police garage or something along Elida Street that would also go back to the Uding property back behind it. So let me put that on the community development if you'd like.
Sure. Thank you.
And just for your general information, looking up on Zillow, it indicates it was in 2001 it was sold for 14,000, in 2004 for 22,000, and then in 2016 it was listed for 30,000. Then in 26, that was October 6th of 2016, it went down to 25,900. November 25th of 2016. November 28th of 16, it went to 25,000. They removed the listing in March of 2017 when it was at 25,000. And then now, as Sally indicated, it's listed at 25,000 and they're saying that they reduced the price by $900, which would have been from 2016.
Okay.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. All right. We'll move on to number 5, and that is discussion of pledge to Rockford Area Economic Development Council. We received a letter that we had not paid an invoice, and it prompted me to find out if it meant that our term was up, because I believe we had pledged for a 5-year term. I know we pledged for a multi-year term. And I think Sally Bennett, you had checked, and this was for the 2020 year that we were supposed to pay for. So I just wanted to let everyone know that we're still under our obligation. That $2,000 payment was previously authorized by board action, but it will be coming up sometime, whether it's in 2021 or 2022, but sometime it'll be coming up for renewal. And it's possible that the RAEDC will merge or become part of the Region 1 Planning Council. Region 1 Planning Council has been created to look at economic development also in the area. So they're looking at kind of combining both. The Rockford Chamber, I think, is moving towards the Region 1 Planning Council as well. So just wanted to give you that heads up. The next item we have is discussion and approval of the expenditure of $1,400 for Keep Northern Illinois Beautiful medication collection. This is something that we've done for quite a few years now. I believe we did not do it this last year in 2020 because of COVID, and we weren't sure of our budget, and we also weren't sure of whether we could have that event at all. And we're looking at having this event this year, and I would recommend that we do fund this. And typically it's, I think, the second Saturday or, well,
In June.
in June. I can't remember if it's in the notice or not, but
Yes, it is, June 12th.
June 12th.
Yeah,
Okay.
Sally, do you want to expound on that? What happened when we showed up the last time to collect the medicine?
They said they didn't need our help.
Some years they need volunteers and some, so they do need, I think, a police officer there, or they've had one in the past.
They didn't even want those.
Okay.
They didn't even want those. They asked me why they were there. So very interesting day I spent down there. Mike, you did too, didn't you?
Well, we were there if they needed us.
Yeah. So I would ask for, if you're interested in making a motion to authorize the expenditure of $1,400 for that event.
Well, I think it's a good idea. I'll make a motion to do that.
Okay.
Mike McKinnon will second.
All right, thank you. Any discussion?
Where does this money come from?
Sally Bennett raised her hand. She'll give you the answer, I think.
That's right. 1747912.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you.
I think the organization as a whole does a very good job, even beyond this medication. So, whether this is a direct funding to the medication drive or just kind of a general funding to the organization, I think it's a worthwhile organization to support.
Well said, Mike. I agree. Any additional discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Kime?
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda?
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Ms. Morgan?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke?
Yes.
All right, that's approved. Items 7 and 8 are kind of combined. We did have various people from the village on a conference call with the team from Comcast sometime during the last month. And Mary was also involved in that telephone conference. And just kind of, I guess, I'll leave it up to you, Mary, if you can kind of let us know. I asked Mary, and I think we talked about the last meeting, to have her contact MediaCom just to see what we could do about our current contract. And then we also talked to Comcast, and they reiterated that they can only hold on to their current offer, and it typically renews every month. It may or may not change. So what we received in the past may or may not be available in the future. So Mary, if you can let us know like where we might be with MediaCom.
And I can tell you that I did try, nobody really had any good contact information for any legal counsel for MediaCom, because that's who I needed to deal with. And I think I have found a source, but we've been playing phone tag, so I don't have any resolution. But I think at least I'm in the right corner, so to speak.
Now, Kate Hodel has been our contact at MediaCom, and I've tried to reach out to her at times, and sometimes she'll respond and sometimes not. So, but she's the one that, if you have not already tried, her, you might want to try Kate to see if she can give us that information.
Okay, I will see. I know I've dealt with her in the past, but I will see
And that
if
was when we
she's.
had Comcast come in before.
Right.
So she might be able to give us, I think she's kind of our rep or liaison for that respect. All right, so anyway, once we resolve the MediaCom or find out from MediaCom, then we can report back and let you know what our obligation would be if we terminate and when we can terminate. Item number 9, funding source for Pecatonica Prairie Path Trailhead. I mentioned Region 1 Planning Council. They have a steering committee for broadband, and I was selected to be on that steering committee. And one of the things that was brought up at the last meeting was the United States Economic Development Administration received a ton of money from this latest round of COVID-19 relief. And they're looking at investing this in various projects around the country, municipalities. Part of it is probably broadband, but additionally, they want to fund other things. And one of the big things they want to fund is outdoor recreation, outdoor items. And when I talked to Nathan Webb at Region 1 last week, he asked if we had anything going on. I said, well, we have broadband. We're looking at Comcast maybe coming in. You know, we'd like to see if maybe we could get funding to have them spread throughout the village. But I said, if you're looking at outdoor activities, we have a prairie path. And I said, we have a building or possible building that we may want to purchase to be part of that trailhead. And he said, this program would be perfect for that. He said, we'd be the only municipality in the county that actually has a plan to utilize funds for outdoor activities. And he said that we should move forward with this request. And I told him that we were looking at up to $200,000 to purchase a building, renovate the building, and then to add things around the prairie path that came through the village. And he said that he thought that'd be a terrific thing to do. I just wanted to present it to you to make sure that you want me to move forward with something like this. And then I would still reach out to Mr. Whitehead. I see the property is still for sale, but that was the initial building. But I also was able to talk to, just out of chance, to Mr. Warren Jones, who owns another building right near there that we had also possibly looked at. And he was of the idea that he'd be willing to sell it to the village, especially if we look at utilizing it for a community place for people to come in. So we do have some possibilities for a facility that would allow people to come in and possibly change, you know, when they go bike riding. But Nathan from Region 1 also is an avid biker. And he said there is a place out in, I think it's Kansas or Nebraska, that hosts an annual riding event where 2,500 to 3,000 people go. And I see Kelly's nodding her head, so she must be aware of that. But it's not out of the realm that we could host something like that. And I know we have bikers, you know, come through here at different times. I see them in the summertime. So I will work on trying to get this. I told Nathan that I had contacted at the time Chairman Frank Haney about our interest, and the county at the time was looking to fund these things. Well, now we don't even have to look at the county to fund it. What Nathan said is we could present our plan, but then he would also reach out to Rockford, because I mentioned that Rockford needs to do their part on the Pecatonica Prairie Trail because it kind of stops at Meridian. And we need Rockford to continue it so that we have a place for it to continue towards the east, not just the west. So he was going to contact Rockford and the county to see if they would also be looking at this. I know, Mike, you had mentioned attending the Pecatonica Prairie Trail meeting, or trying to, and able to attend possibly for a little bit. And so I gave him Carlos Molina's name, the possibility that maybe we could all have funding projects that coincide with this Pecatonica Prairie Trail. So we'll see how that goes. But I wanted to, you know, just give you a heads up that that's the direction I'll be going. Yeah, Sally.
Thanks, Frank.
I just wanted to say that I also received a proposal for Memorial Park. So if it's something that we could just throw everything we have at them and see what sticks, please let me know.
Right, and because it's next door to it, you know, we could put that in the plan of upgrading because of the people using the Prairie Path would also utilize Memorial Park. So Sally, that would be great to try and incorporate that into a plan. The other thing I forgot to mention is we have to come up with 20%. So if we do look at $200,000 in funding, we'd have to have 40,000. They would have 160.
We just recently transferred $100,000 to community development from the CURE grant for economic development.
Perfect.
Yes,
so
we did.
I told him that we already have the funding available, and he said that's even better because now we can tell them we have the funding, we have the ability to move forward with the project. It's pretty much shovel ready as long as we have a building we can buy. So those are the things that they're looking for. All right. Any other thoughts, just let me know. And Sally, if you have information about that, just let me know about costs and things like that. Next time,
did he give you a number or not? Or just discussion? Warren Jones.
No, it was just discussion. We didn't talk about any type of amount, but just that he would be agreeable to sitting down and discussing it more. So when I found out about that, I didn't know that this funding was available yet. So I have to reach back out to him and follow up. But I think the initial building with Mr. Whitehead probably is in better shape, and it already has water and sewer, so we wouldn't have to pay for those things. But I still want to check the other building just to see what that option might be. All right. The next item we have is village laptops for trustee. And in the packet, you should have 4 separate quotes for 4 separate laptops. 3 of them, I believe, are from the same Microsoft Surface, just a little bit different from each other. And then the 4th one is Lenovo, thank you. And stuff here. The original device that I tried did not work very well. So Kelly looked at these devices, and I believe they're similar to what Kelly and maybe Sally have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Chad also.
Oh, and Chad. So I don't believe they've experienced any problems with any meetings or doing their regular work. So the idea would be that each of the trustees would have a laptop device, and depending upon which one, the first one has 128 gigabytes. I believe the 2 other ones have 256 gigabytes of storage, which would allow for sufficient storage of the monthly meeting information and creation of documents and things like that. But the nice thing is we would be able to use the village devices for village things and not have to put that on your own personal device. And then at the end of your term, you would just hand over that laptop to the next trustee or the next person, and that person would already have that device and already have those items. So it'd be a good way to transition information from one trustee to the next. So the other idea is we're sitting here, Kelly and I are sitting here. At some point when we come back here, if we're still having some people log in virtually, whether it's the public or certain employees or trustees, we could utilize each person's laptop with the camera so you can see everybody here at the meeting. And then we do have the audio and the monitor here already for the meeting. So it would also allow us to have those types of meetings and have everyone on camera. So what I'd be looking for is if you're interested in purchasing these, or you want some time to take a look at these, if finance wants to look at the impact, but we have it on the agenda just to bring to your attention. So whatever you want to do tonight is up to you as a group of trustees, but I thought we would bring it forward tonight and see how you wanted to proceed.
So Frank, are you preferring that we keep all our village stuff on a village device? Is that the preference? I know we got these little doodads that never worked, but is that just your preference to keep everything on the laptop that's village owned?
That's my preference. Obviously, you know, there's times when you're going to be using other devices, but it'd be nice to have village items on that device. And if you need additional flash drives or other things for, you know, whether you have like the, you know, let's say you have the UDO and the UDO takes up a lot of memory, you need to have a separate flash drive for that, then the village can purchase flash drives for large things like that. So you can actually put it on a flash drive and then put that in to the laptop whenever you need to access that information.
I guess I personally don't have any preference. I'm as low tech as they come. I know what I know about my machine, and that's all I need to know.
Sure.
So,
It's hard to make a judgment because the first ones we had were such a pain in the neck that they really provided very little value. I guess, Mary, from your perspective, what's the risk of ever on a Freedom of Information Act or somebody that they would have to try to lay claim onto one of our personal devices?
I can tell you, and that's why I was waiting for everyone to finish with their commentary, that under the Freedom of Information Act, when they make a request, technically it goes, if they ask for something, you have to then go to your personal computers and take off and, you know, give us what is there that pertains to the village. So I really like the idea of things being just on a village computer. Now, that's not to say you're never going to have anything on your own personal computer, but if it were such that we needed to be able to get information that's village information on there, that, you know, then people are seeing what your own personal information, then there's nothing we can do about that. Meaning the people who have to go through to figure out what's on your computer that is relevant to the village. So I think it's certainly a positive. These seem a little bit expensive to me. I know I just recently did some laptop purchases through my IT guy. And I guess and I'm not in any way trying to say go back to the little tablets you had, because those were awful. But I don't know. It just depends. Do you feel, at least if I read it correctly, these are touch screens? Do you need touch screens for what you're doing? Maybe you do, but it just seems expensive.
The Lenovo, it didn't state that I could see that it was a touch screen. I think that and the Lenovo had a bigger screen. It's a 15.6 inch versus a 12.4 inch. Also, the Lenovo, I believe, has a backlit keyboard, which works well if you don't have a lot of light. Don't know when that might happen, because hopefully we'll get a generator here in the village office, so you won't be working in the dark. But I did look at the battery life, and the battery life for the Lenovo is much shorter. Looks like it's 6 hours of runtime versus the Surface was about 13 hours of life, I believe, on the battery. So it's really what's important to you. They all have microphones, they all have stereo speakers, they all have cameras, they all have headphone outputs, they all have Bluetooth. They're all about, I don't know, 2.5 pounds. So again, if you want to wait to make the decision, we're not in a hurry. We will have one or two new board members coming on in May or shortly after that. If you want Kelly, and I don't know if Nick helped out, but if you want Kelly to look at additional products, whether it be Dell or some other place, and see what the prices are, we can do that.
Of the 3 laptops that are shown here, I think the Lenovo is the best one. But I do think there are probably cheaper versions out there that would suffice for what we need.
Okay. So Jeremy, with that direction, I suppose it'd behoove us to look at some additional devices. Maybe look at the Lenovo and see what other devices they have, maybe for a lesser price. And when I see that there's 128 gigabytes of storage, you can buy a flash drive that has 256, because I have one at my office. So if we need to, we can always buy flash drives. We can store additional information on the flash drives. And getting back to Mary's point, if you do use a personal device, I would ask that maybe the village issue each trustee at least one flash drive. So if you're working on a personal device, you can put your flash drive in there, immediately save onto the flash drive what you worked on. So now we do have the ability for you to drop off your flash drive to the village office, and that would have everything that you may have worked on your personal device. So that I think we could do very soon. We can get the flash drives to everybody. And then once we get the laptop, then we can provide that to everybody as well. So unless anyone thinks differently, we'll go ahead and table that for more research, and then we'll come back to the board when we feel we have some more to present. All right. So we'll move on then to discussion of committee and board meeting deadlines. Couple things. I was talking to Kelly before about planning each month for the board meeting, and sometimes it gets a little hectic the last week before the board meeting. And I didn't realize this, but it gets really difficult to add in additional items to the board packet electronically. So like if she has everything done on Friday and then somebody on Friday night or Saturday says, hey, I want you to add this to the board packet, she, I think, has to go through and delete everything and then add everything else back in with the new item. So it makes it really, it's not that easy just to add one more item. So then sometimes what happens is we get it added to the login at the village website. Now everybody goes to that part and downloads the additional items that were just added over the weekend or on Monday. So what I was wanting to talk about and see if it makes sense is maybe we look at having committee meetings earlier in the month so that we don't have the last minute here's information, and that we also have information provided maybe just a day or two earlier. And that's just a thing that Kelly can send out earlier and say, hey, can I have your stuff in a day or two earlier? When we had our COW meetings were pretty much 2 weeks after the board meeting, 2 weeks before the next board meeting. And it seemed to work out well in the sense that it would allow us enough time from when we had the COW meeting to get our minutes in order, to get any resolutions in order, to get things looked at prior to the board meeting so that we had everything prepared before the board meeting. And so just, what I would say is look at your committees and see when they meet and see if it makes sense to move the time frame of when they meet. I'm not suggesting that we go back to the COW meeting per se where everyone attends every single committee meeting, but if you feel that it might be easier to meet earlier in the month, so be it. And again, with finance, you're meeting the night of. Sometimes it's hard to know what you're going to have on the meeting, and so again, just think about how that'll work for the board meeting. So just, you know, if you have any ideas of how it may work a little better, obviously talk to Kelly and you know, find out from her, you know, the best method of getting her information and how soon to get it to her.
Finance could probably do it. We just have to be a month behind, right? We'd just be a month behind when it came to the board meeting reports,
Right.
which is what we did in the beginning when I joined. So I'd be all for not having a 10-hour night.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, you guys can talk at finance about how that'll work for you, but it may work a little better to have it earlier in the month, and then you're doing the previous month rather than the current month. And obviously, Sally, you know, you're a big part of this because you have to get the reports ready. So obviously, you know, you guys can talk about it at the next finance meeting. All right. The next item I have on the agenda is discussion of local regulation of cannabis. I'm bringing this up, I brought it up before at a meeting, and I'm bringing it up because I want to have something in place so that if we do have any interest, they'll know that either we do not want it at all, or we will under certain circumstances. And if we do, what the zoning is and what the requirements are, what the occupational taxes, all of that stuff, rather than someone coming to us and saying, hey, I want to do this, and then we're scrambling to get it done, something that might take 6 months, we're trying to crunch into 1 month. So I'm putting this out there. I don't want any decision made tonight. I just wanted you to see what IML has for certain items. But I do want us to talk about this at some point tonight. And again, if we're going to have another 1 or 2 new board members in May, I'd like to have the new board member or board members involved in this discussion from the get-go. But I just want to bring it up. So I don't know if you feel that this is something that we should be talking at the board level, have a special board meeting to talk things about it, or if we want it to come from a committee, whether it be police or whether it be community development. You know, if you want to give some thoughts now, that's fine. If you want me to just continue it and put it on the May board meeting just as a reminder, I can do that as well. I'll just put it on a tabled item for next month. We'll see who the new people are on the board, and then we'll bring it back up at that point. The next item would be future meeting dates. And Sally, if you want to go ahead and start with that.
Public Works,
Wednesday, April the 28th at 5:30 p.m.
5:30.
Yes.
Police,
To be determined.
Finance,
Thursday, May 6th at 5:30.
Community Development,
To be determined.
the same would be true for 4th of July.
Same would be true for 4th of July.
Liquor Commission,
To be determined.
Parent Water will be May 10th if needed before the meeting. Admin,
Jeremy had mentioned,
I have on my calendar that we have an admin meeting this Wednesday at 3:30.
I thought we did with admin and department head.
okay, I, for some reason, did not write that down, and I would not be available.
And we'll have to have a different date.
Yeah, and I apologize for that. That's my fault. So I'll send out an email to everybody and ask the availability.
Okay. WIPSI I have down as April 21st.
At 5:30, correct?
Right. Tech Prairie Path, do we know when the next meeting is?
I don't. I'll let you know when we get the email.
And I think that's everything.
All right, thanks. We'll go on to new business. Anybody have any new business?
Finance Committee does. We discussed with a couple of different committees on the potential of raising the department heads' spending limits. We're looking to rewrite the spending policy and bring it to the board next month, but we're looking at a $3,000, an increase from $1,500 to $3,000 for the department heads, as that will eliminate a lot of unnecessary coming to the committee chairs for small items, for everyday items that just happen to go over that limit of the traditional 1,500.
Okay.
Just to clarify, that was just for police and streets, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
I don't wanna-
I've got a new business. Any other new business? I've got
Jeremy,
an item.
I'm sorry, there is, because Jeremy, we also talked about potentially raising the committee chairs number too, right, to 7,500, 5,000?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
Just
And so
wanted
that
to
would-
throw it out there in case there were objections, I guess, to start.
Is this only for police and streets as well?
Yes.
Well, when you say streets, you probably mean public works.
Public works as a whole, yes.
No, she said streets.
Yeah,
I
but
meant Public Works, I misspoke.
Okay. Any other items? I've got an item for new business. Just wanted to let you know that we will have our first Winnebago County PSAP board meeting on April 20th at 2 p.m. You may remember when we signed the Winnebago County 9/11 IGA that a PSAP board was created. Because of COVID, we deferred our meeting, and we're now going to meet at Loves Park City Hall. And so I'll report back and let you know how that goes. And I have another item on new business, and that is the trustee residency. And we have two items. The first one is Lori Morgan recently sold her home in the village and moved. She's still in the school district, but she moved outside the village. So what I would ask is that she would tender her letter of resignation. We can have it effective at the May board meeting, but I believe at this point, she would not be part of any vote. So like if she's attending finance, and Mary, if you can maybe see if this makes sense, but that she could attend finance in the board meeting in May, but she would not vote.
And she also, she'd be more like a guest, so she would not be counted for the purpose of establishing a quorum at those meetings either.
Right.
Would that be true for resignation taking effect yet?
Well, because the fact is, even though the resignation hasn't been submitted, the operative fact is that it's no longer somebody who's living in the village, and I take it that the intent is to permanently reside elsewhere.
Right. So at this point, she would be considered a guest at a meeting. And then the other item is we have the continued residency of Stan Malagranda. And I know Stan, there was a hearing scheduled for later this month. And I don't know if there's been any word as to whether that hearing will continue, if the issue's been resolved.
Nothing has been resolved. It's still scheduled for April 20th.
Okay. So let us know what occurs with that. Or let me know what occurs with that, so then we
Yeah,
can,
yeah.
and then I'll bring it back up at the May board meeting.
Okay.
Any other new business? All right, hearing none, if we have a motion to adjourn.
Trustee Kimes adjourn.
Mike McKinnon will second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Kimes,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan,
Yeah.
Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham.
Yes.
All right,
Nine-
the meeting's concluded at
9:15.
9:15 p.m. 9:15 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good, thanks, Frank.
Have a good night.
Good night.